Been a hell of a week for the Pittsburgh Steelers franchise. Hines Ward probably was the most thrilled to have one of his teammates take a little bit of the spotlight off him. Earlier this week, James Harrison's Men's Journal article has taken plenty of the conversation at this media outlet and others. But that doesn't mean Hines is out of the woods by any means, and we've got the perfect guest to bring on to talk about what Hines is facing coming up. It's our sports legal segment with Frank Walker from FrankWalkerLaw.com. Frank, good morning. How are you, sir?
Good, kid. How are you?
Pretty good. And not only are you a Pittsburgh lawyer, DUI is sort of your specialty, is it not?
Yes. Mostly DUIs and other traffic offenses, and I do some of the heavy stuff with the criminal defense also, but I get a lot of DUIs, unfortunately, in the Pittsburgh area.
How do folks get a hold of you, first of all, if they want to check out your website and what you do?
They can check me out at FrankWalkerLaw.com, or they can hit me up at 412-532-6805.
Okay. Now, what is, when you first heard of the Hines case, did you have any kind of first reaction? I mean, obviously every DUI case is different, right?
Yeah, every DUI case is different. I mean, but in this case, I mean, obviously they're innocent until proven guilty, and that's just not an empty slogan that people throw around. I mean, it's true. I mean, nowadays with the media and the news and TV and internet, it's splattered across the internet and the media as if they're already guilty and they're convicted, which is not necessarily the case. But in this case, I guess it's just more. It's disappointing because you're not familiar. You're not accustomed to seeing Hines in the news with negative news. I believe there was an incident about a month ago. I think out in California where he was driving. It was mistaken identity,
right.
And he gave the cause. He said, hey, they're just doing their jobs. But now it's just he's back in the news again. It's for a DUI arrest out in Georgia. I mean, it's disappointing. Just to hear the news. I mean, not the arrest, but just to hear the news of him having negative light thrust upon him.
Now, he came out and basically said through his agent over the weekend, this was last Thursday night, I guess, into Friday morning where the incident happened, but basically they've claimed innocence, right? Is that I don't want to say, is it a smart move? Is it an obvious move to make for he and his agent? Or, I mean, could that come back to hurt him at some point if they find that he is guilty?
Well, again, it just all depends what the facts prove. I mean, nothing. All we're hearing now is what the officers. I think what's a public record, maybe just the initial officer report. During the process, you get what they call discovery, where you get additional reports. If there's any blood samples that were taken and tested, you get those results. Any breathalyzers that were taken, I mean, that you get those results. I don't believe one was taken.
No.
But I believe right now you just have the initial report. I mean, obviously more information will come out. Obviously, the officers are going to come in and say he had these tests taken. He had these tests administered to him, and he either passed or failed them on a scale of 1 to 10. This is where he placed on a scale of 1 to 10. But it just depends on what comes out later. I mean, obviously, you want to come out and say, hey, my client's innocent. We'll look forward to fighting these charges. But if it comes out later on that the evidence proves otherwise, then he would have to come up and just admit to it and step up and say, hey, I made a mistake here. I'm putting my life in the mercy of the court, and I'm looking for some type of mercy here, and just want to plead guilty and accept responsibility for his actions. But just because he says in the beginning, I'm innocent, I mean, that doesn't necessarily prevent him from negotiating a deal later on down the road.
Now, the police report came out, and they administered a series of tests right there, according to the police. He couldn't walk in a straight line. They said he failed to keep balance. He swayed back and forth. He missed heel-to-toe connection. He had an improper turn. He had to use his arms for balance. He had bloodshot eyes. He mixed up the alphabet, omitted letters. Is there a way to fight all those accusations by the police?
Yes, and again, if you notice in your statement alone, just right there, that's a perfect example. That's just the officer's statement of what happened.
Right.
I mean, so obviously you're taking that as true, and everyone's taking it as true because they're officers; they're sworn to tell the truth. But then there are some incidents where the officers are inaccurate in their recitation of the facts. For example, if 2 in the morning or 3 in the morning or whenever, and you pull someone over and you want them to walk a straight line, you want them to do this in an exact way. I mean, you'd be surprised at the people who, if given that test on a normal day, under normal circumstances, what the subjective view of the officer would be of how they performed on that test. You may think, oh, I did fine. I did the heel to toe. I did the alphabet the way they want. I did the alphabet exactly how I've learned it. I walked this road. It was wet outside, but I did the best I could. But I'm not drunk. I haven't had any drinks, and I don't know how long. I did everything perfectly in my mind. But the officer's saying, well, you know what? I'm thinking you failed this. I'm thinking, you didn't do this well enough. And that's their view. So you have to really get on the officer and say, hey, What steps did you take to verify that he failed this? Why do you say he failed it?
Right.
What evidence do you have that he failed it? What can you point to? Is it on video? Did you take any notes? What steps do you have in grading? Is a pass or fail automatically, or is it 1 through 10? Where did he fall on a 1 to 10? How do you grade it as a 4 as opposed to an 8?
Interesting. Yeah, and, I guess the video, they have claimed there is some video. It's not been released yet. How important will that be in the process? That's got to be huge, right?
Yes, it'll be huge. It'll be huge as far as for the officer or for the defendant with Hines, because if the video is out there and it shows that he performed the test well and he performed the test accurately, then it will go to the credibility of either Hines or to the officer. But obviously at this time, Hines is yet to release a statement as to exactly what happened. And then obviously he has the Fifth Amendment right to remain silent also and not to take the stand at all. I mean, there's so many issues. And also I believe there was a statement of a video of him at the bar, leaving the bar earlier that night, and there's people saying that he wasn't intoxicated at all. So there's a lot of issues and witnesses and evidence in this case, and I just hope that it gets wrapped up efficiently before the season. There's not a distraction for the season.
We're talking with Frank Walker, frankwalkerlaw.com, and Frank is a defense attorney with a bit of a specialty in DUI cases. Real results right here in Pittsburgh from Frank. Now, he consented, Hines did, to a portable breath test, which when that first report came out, Frank, I thought that's a breathalyzer test. But it's not, right? What's the difference here? This is something different from drawing blood, right?
Correct. I mean, you have in different states have different rules and different devices by which they use. In Pennsylvania, they obviously have the breathalyzer where you blow into it and it has to have a certain pressure from your breath where it pops out and there's a reading on it. But in Georgia, I believe they have the same thing, and I don't believe they actually drew blood, because with that he would actually have to go into the hospital and draw within a certain amount of time and do the reading on it. And
I guess this breath test is not admissible in court. It read a .128, which is above the .08 legal limit. But if it's not admissible in court, why do the officers use it?
Well, I guess it's more of a tactic, if you will. You go to the defendant and say, hey, you're twice the legal limit. We can work things out. Just give us a statement. And from the defendant's view, it's 2 a.m. You just got pulled over. You got these flashing lights in your eyes. You're thinking, oh, these guys are going to take me to jail. This is so embarrassing. I just had a glass of wine. I'm just celebrating whatever. And now they're saying I'm twice the legal limit. I can understand why, but I really want to get this wrapped up. I don't want anyone finding out about it. They said I blew this, so they must be right. Therefore, I must give them a statement, tell them I'm drunk, and maybe I can get it wrapped up quietly.
Right.
It's mainly a scare tactic.
So there's a lot of pressure there. Plus, you're nervous, right, under these circumstances. They've got you on the defensive.
Exactly. They got you on your heels. I mean, and sometimes you're thinking, well, I know I have the right to remain silent. I know I have the right to do this, but maybe I can just talk my way out of this and maybe negotiate something to where, it doesn't get out there. It doesn't get exposed. And that's probably the major mistake people make.
Now, was Hines in the right, or did he make a good decision not to take a breathalyzer test? He refused to do so, but there were, I guess the follow-up was that he's got to have a hearing now within 90 days and is in jeopardy of losing his driver's license for a year because he refused to take one.
Exactly. In Pennsylvania, it's automatic 1-year suspension of your driver's license if you refuse to do a breathalyzer. I mean, again, it goes back to being in that position. I mean, how would you react in that position? You think they're telling you you're drunk, take this breathalyzer test. And then now you're thinking, well, if I don't blow into it, therefore they can't find that I'm drunk. I mean, but it cuts against you because it's an automatic suspension.
Wow.
I mean, the best thing to do is just abide by what the officers are saying, abide by the rules, perform the test to the best of your ability, and ask for an attorney.
In this case, Frank, do you feel like it's kind of a done deal? He'll lose his license then just because he refused to take that test?
Well, it depends, and I believe he has some good counsel down there in Georgia to help him out. It all depends on how they approach it. I mean, when was it asked for him to give the test? When did they ask him to take the test? Was it before he was under arrest? Was it after he was under arrest? Was it while he was in the car? Was it at the hospital? There's so many factors that play into that, and I'm sure that the legal counsel are all over that, and they're filing motions right now as we speak.
Wow. Well, hey, Frank, a perfect week to have you on. We really appreciate you doing it. One more time, how do folks get a hold of you? Unfortunately, as you point out, there's a lot of DUI cases here in Pennsylvania, and you're the best in the business at it. So if people need some advice, how do they get it?
They can visit me online at frankwalkerlaw.com or just call me 24 hours a day, 412-532-6805.
Have a great weekend.
I appreciate it, Ken. Take care. You too.
Okay, Frank Walker there, frankwalkerlaw.com. Legal news of sports. It's our sports legal segment every week, and perfect week for Frank to come on. But, hey, as he points out, and he's a guy who fights these cases all the time, we do jump to judgment. There could be certainly impropriety or just a faulty bias coming from an officer. People have all talked about the climate in Georgia. Video evidence will be huge here. And when was he asked to take that breathalyzer test? Because if they were clear and concise and upfront about it, not just worked it in after the fact or something like, oh, hey, you should, we wanted you to take a breathalyzer, he refused. They could certainly fight this. And Hines, in fact, today came out with a statement that he appreciates the support he's gotten, a big Facebook post